Welcome to the debate. When we picture a high-stakes negotiation, we usually, envision a heavily scrutinized contract. Every comma, every clause, engineered to be legally bulletproof.
Right. Yeah. The explicit agreement.
Exactly. We treat the spoken words and that final ink as the ultimate reality.
Because it's the territory. It's the tangible, measurable framework we can actually hold people to.
Right, but, well, long before the pen ever touches that paper, the two humans sitting across the table are leaking massive amounts of data.
Oh, for sure.
The body is effectively broadcasting this parallel narrative. So the central question for us today is, in these high-stakes moments, does that nonverbal communication truly speak louder by reliably revealing hidden truths? Or is its interpretive value just, too ambiguous to overshadow the explicit spoken exchange?
I argue that while physical cues absolutely communicate something, they are dangerously susceptible to misinterpretation.
Dangerously?
Yeah, dangerously. Because if we over-index on them, we lose our grounding. The explicit words being said must remain the primary focus, simply because words are the only things we can actually negotiate.
Well, I argue that nonverbal cues are the paramount source of truth, because honestly, they are largely driven by the autonomic nervous system.
Right, the involuntary stuff.
Exactly. They bypass the conscious filter entirely. When someone engineers a verbal deception, their prefrontal cortex is working in overdrive.
Sure.
So they literally lack the cognitive bandwidth to police their own micro-expressions or, their limb movements, which is exactly why those cues reveal what the carefully crafted words are obscuring.
But see, that assumes a direct, decipherable link between a physiological twitch and a specific intent. And establishing that baseline of trust or even skepticism in our own observational skills is where the real problem lies.
Well, let's anchor this in Paul Watzlawick's axiom, right? One cannot not communicate.
Classic.
It is. Even in total silence, our counterparts are constantly transmitting data. You really have to listen with your eyes.
Listen with your eyes, huh?
Yeah. When we see a closed posture, a wandering gaze, or say a sudden nervous shift in weight, these aren't just random physical tics. They are the physiological exhaust of cognitive load.
Hold on, though. Watzlawick was right that we're always communicating something, but he didn't hand us a universal dictionary.
Well, no, but
You might interpret a wandering gaze as deception, but in a lot of high-context cultures, prolonged eye contact is actually a challenge, not a sign of confidence. Or consider neurodivergent baselines.
sure, baselines vary.
Right. If you apply a standard aggressive Western baseline to a global negotiation, you're just entirely misreading the data.
Okay, but you're talking about baseline errors, which a skilled observer adjusts for. Once you establish a proper baseline, deviations from it are glaring.
Are they?
Absolutely. If someone confidently states, "This is my final offer," but their blink rate suddenly triples and they start self-soothing by rubbing their neck, the body's telling the truth. The words are just a tactic.
Or their neck just hurts.
Come on.
No, seriously. Or they've hit their absolute bottom line and they're terrified the deal is falling apart. Tripling the blink rate doesn't inherently mean the offer is a bluff.
But it means stress.
It just means they are experiencing stress, yes. Assuming a stress response directly equates to a specific hidden intention is a massive, dangerous leap in logic.
But that stress is exactly the point. Think about it like a smoke alarm.
Okay.
If a counterpart verbally agrees to a contract point, but their physiological stress markers spike, ignoring the body is like ignoring a smoke alarm just because you don't see the fire yet.
That's a bit of a stretch.
No, it's the physical tell that overrides the verbal bluff. It's literally an alarm bell signaling that the spoken words are compromised.
A smoke alarm tells you there is smoke. It doesn't tell you if the house is burning down or if someone just burned toast.
But you still check the kitchen.
Sure, but if you pivot your entire strategy based on a spiked blink rate, you risk projecting your own insecurities, your own confirmation bias onto your counterpart.
So you just ignore the alarm entirely?
I'm not saying you ignore it, but you don't abandon the tangible reality of the negotiation for it.
I don't think you're abandoning reality.
You are if you ignore the text. When words are carefully constructed to hide something, the negotiator is operating with strategy, They've built a verbal framework for a specific reason. We negotiate terms, conditions, and clauses. We do not sign contracts based on blink rates.
Well, what happens when there are no words to fall back on? Take silence.
Okay, silence.
Silence isn't a void at the table. It's an active, incredibly loud transmission of data. When the verbal stream stops, the nonverbal stream takes over entirely.
Mm-hmm.
The hesitations, the shift in breathing rate, that is the real negotiation happening right in front of you.
Look, silence is absolutely a transmission of data, I'll give you that. But it's a transmission covered in static.
Static?
Yes, static. It's the most ambiguous form of communication. When you remove the verbal framework, you are entirely in the realm of subjective interpretation.
Why static, though? If you know what to look for, the signal's crystal clear.
Because the static is the observer's own bias. Without words to ground the interaction, we're just two people sitting in a room silently guessing at each other's inner lives.
I wouldn't call it guessing.
It is, though. The words are strictly necessary to strip away that static.
Well, if you want to understand the reality of the table, you have to read the signals that bypass the script. The spoken word is highly curated, heavily edited by the prefrontal cortex before it ever leaves the mouth.
That's true.
So mastering the unspoken is where the true art of negotiation lies.
Observation provides valuable context, sure, but the inherent ambiguity of nonverbal cues means words must matter most. When it comes time to finalize intent and close a deal, you need the clarity of language, not the guesswork of gestures.
I think we completely converge on the undeniable reality of Watzlawick's rule, though. No matter what happens at the table, whether it's a fiery debate or dead silence, communication is perpetually occurring.
Without a doubt, you cannot not communicate. The physiological and verbal data is always flowing.
Which leaves us with a fundamental question to formulate your own philosophy on.
Yeah.
The next time you're sitting across the table watching that perfectly engineered, bulletproof contract slide towards you, do you trust the explicit words on the page? Or do you trust the smoke alarm going off in the nervous hands of the person pushing it?